What happens when you're 5 months pregnant and your own family tries to steal your baby's birthright? Imagine carrying life inside you while the people who share your blood plot to destroy everything you've built. Get ready for a story where a legendary mafia grandmother makes everyone choose: kneel in loyalty or drown in their own blood. Picture this. You're 5 months pregnant, vulnerable and glowing with new life. When betrayal strikes from within your own family, they want your baby's inheritance before the child even takes its first breath. But your grandmother isn't just any woman. She's a mafia queen who built an empire on bones and broken promises. Prepare to witness what happens when a matriarch's love transforms into a weapon of mass destruction. Some betrayals cut deeper than a blade, especially when you're pregnant and your family targets the innocent life growing inside you. My baby's inheritance sparked a war, and my grandmother, the most feared woman in the underworld, is about to remind everyone why crossing our bloodline means choosing your own grave. You won't believe the merciless justice that's about to rain down on those who dared threaten an unborn heir. I remember the exact moment I felt my baby kick, for the first time. 5 months pregnant. Standing in my bathroom, my hand pressed against my belly. Pure joy. Pure love. I thought nothing could touch that moment. I was wrong. My sister walked into my home that same night with a smile on her face and a lawyer in her pocket. She wanted my baby's inheritance. Not after my child was born. Not after years of patience. She wanted it now, while my baby was still curled inside me, defenseless and trusting. I called the only person who could fix this. Not my husband. Not my father. I called my grandmother, the woman who built our family empire with blood under her fingernails and bodies in her wake. She's 73 years old. She moves like death, wearing expensive perfume. When she answered my call, her voice was calm, almost sweet. "Tell me everything, sweetheart," I told her. And when I finished, there was silence. Then she said 6 words that changed everything. "Nobody threatens what belongs to us." My grandmother doesn't negotiate. She doesn't forgive. She doesn't give second chances. She makes people bow. And when they refuse, she makes them bleed. My sister thought she was playing chess. She didn't realize my grandmother invented the game and burned the board years ago. Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you so much for showing me so much love and support. Listen, if you're already hooked on today's story and you can't wait to hear what happens, then do these 2 things right now. Like and subscribe, so you catch tomorrow's equally amazing story. Let's continue. That Tuesday afternoon in October changed everything. I was standing in my kitchen in our Beacon Hill townhouse, slicing tomatoes for dinner, when I felt it. A flutter, then a kick. My baby. My miracle at 48 years old when doctors said it was impossible. I pressed my hand against my belly and laughed. Actually laughed out loud. 5 months of worry, of wondering if this was real, and there it was. Proof. Life. My daughter moving inside me. I grabbed my phone and called Marceline, my sister, my best friend since we were kids, running through our grandmother's compound in the North End, stealing cannoli from the kitchen and pretending we were queens of Boston. She answered on the second ring. "Mare, the baby kicked." She actually kicked. Marceline's squeal made me pull the phone away from my ear. "I'm coming over right now. Don't you dare move. I want to feel her." 20 minutes later, she burst through my door with wine for herself and sparkling cider for me. We sat on my velvet couch, her hand pressed against my belly, waiting. When the baby kicked again, Marceline's eyes filled with tears. "She's going to be so loved, Sarah. So protected. This family will give her everything." I believed her. God help me. I believed every single word. We spent the afternoon talking about baby names, nursery colors, whether my daughter would have my eyes or Lucenzo's intensity. Marceline seemed genuinely happy, excited, like the sister I'd grown up with, the one who'd held my hair when I was sick and threatened to break the nose of any boy who hurt me. "I'm so glad you're here," I told her as the sun set over Boston. I was scared to do this alone while Luke's in Providence. "You're never alone, Sarah. You have me, always." She hugged me tight, kissed my cheek, and left around 7. That night, everything shattered. Marceline came back at 9 o'clock. No warning, no phone call. She walked through my door with a man in a gray suit carrying a leather briefcase. The moment I saw his face, cold, professional, calculating, my stomach twisted. "Mrs. Delvecchio, I'm Jonathan Reeves, estate attorney. We need to discuss some documents you signed last month regarding your inheritance transfer." I stared at him. Then at Marceline, whose eyes were fixed on the floor. "What documents?" "I didn't sign anything." The attorney opened his briefcase with practiced efficiency and pulled out legal papers. Thick, Official documents with my signature at the bottom. Transferring my inheritance, everything from our family's legitimate real estate holdings to the trust funds grandmother Vittoria had built over 50 years to Marceline. Effective immediately. My hands shook as I grabbed the papers. That was my signature. Perfect. Exact. Down to the little loop I always made on the S. But I never signed this. I would never sign this. Mare? My voice cracked. What is this? My sister wouldn't look at me. She stared at her hands, at the expensive rug beneath her feet, anywhere but my face. It's just temporary, Sarah. Just until after the baby's born. You know how dangerous pregnancy can be at our age. If something happened to you during delivery, nothing's going to happen to me. You don't know that. Marceline's voice rose, defensive and sharp. I'm just protecting the family assets. Protecting your baby's future. By stealing from her? I stood up, my belly heavy between us, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs would crack. This inheritance is hers. My daughter's birthright. The attorney cleared his throat. Actually, Mrs. Del Vecchio, once signed, these documents are legally binding. Any attempt to contest them could take years in court. Expensive years, and given your current, delicate condition, the stress alone could be dangerous for the baby. He left the threat hanging in the air like smoke. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The woman who held my hand when our mother died, who taught me to braid my hair, who promised just hours ago that my baby would be protected. Get out of my house. Marceline's face crumpled. Sarah, please. If you'd just listen. Get out. They left. And I stood in my living room, one hand on my belly where my daughter was kicking frantically, like she could feel my terror, the other reaching for my phone. I didn't call my husband. Lucenzo was in Providence handling a territory dispute with the Giordano family. I called the only person who could fix this. I called my grandmother, and that's when the war began. Vittoria Oleandra Caruso answered on the first ring. She always did. 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. My grandmother was awake, alert, ready, 73 years old and sharper than men half her age. Seraphine. Her voice was smooth as aged whiskey, deadly as poison. You sound upset. I told her everything. The forged signatures, the attorney with his cold threats, Marceline's betrayal wrapped in concern. My words tumbled out in a panicked rush, my free hand pressed against my belly where my daughter kept kicking, responding to my racing heart. When I finished, there was silence. Not empty silence, the kind that crackles with barely contained rage, the kind that precedes storms and explosions. Send me pictures of the documents, Vittoria said finally, her voice dropping to that deadly calm that meant someone was about to bleed. Every page, every signature. Then lock your doors, set your alarm, and don't let anyone inside except Lucenzo. Do you understand me, sweetheart? Yes, Nana. Good girl. I'll handle this. And Seraphine, try to rest. Stress isn't good for the baby. Your sister will regret this. I promise you that. She hung up. I sent the photos with shaking fingers, then sat on my couch in the dark, listening to the sounds of Boston outside my window. My baby kicked again. Harder this time. Like she was trying to tell me something. Like she already understood that the world was dangerous and family couldn't always be trusted. Across Boston, in her North End compound, a 4-story brownstone that looked like a museum but functioned like a fortress, Vittoria was already moving. She didn't waste time with anger. Anger was useless. Action was everything. My grandmother had built an empire from ashes. 30 years ago, assassins from the Giordano family murdered her husband Dante in a power play meant to destroy us. They shot him in broad daylight outside his favorite cafe, leaving him bleeding on the cobblestones while bystanders screamed. Everyone expected Vittoria to crumble, to sell everything and disappear. Instead, she went to war. Within 6 months, the Giordano family was destroyed. Their businesses seized, their leadership imprisoned or dead, their name erased from Boston's underworld. Vittoria didn't just win, she obliterated, and she rebuilt our family stronger than before. Legitimate businesses hiding illegitimate power. Real estate, restaurants, import companies, all fronts for the empire Dante had started and Vittoria had perfected. Now, at 73, she moved through Boston like death wearing Chanel and pearls. She made 3 phone calls. The first was to her attorney, Marcus Chen, who specialized in making legal problems disappear. I need a complete background on Jonathan Reeves. Everything. Who paid him, where he banks, who he's sleeping with, what he ate for breakfast. I want it by dawn. The second call went to her security chief, Vincent, a former Navy SEAL who'd worked for her for 20 years and would die before betraying her. Put surveillance on Marceline Del Vecchio. I want to know where she goes, who she talks to, every breath she takes. And Vin, if she goes anywhere near Seraphine's house, you call me immediately before you break both her legs. The third call was to her financial investigator, a brilliant woman named Sophia who could trace money through shell companies and offshore accounts like a bloodhound tracking a scent. Marceline has a gambling problem, Vittoria said. Not a question, a statement of fact. She'd suspected for months, noticing the desperation in her granddaughter's eyes at family dinners. Find out how deep the hole goes. I want numbers by morning. Then she sat in her study, surrounded by photos of Dante, her husband, her partner, the love of her life, stolen by violence. She'd avenged him, built a legacy in his name, and now someone dared threaten that legacy. Threatened her great-grandchild before the baby even took her first breath. Nobody touched her family. Nobody threatened what belonged to her bloodline. Her phone buzzed at 6 the next morning. Sophia's report landed in her encrypted email. Vittoria opened it and started reading, her expression never changing, cold, focused, calculating. Marceline owed money, $4.7 million, to be exact, spread across 3 different gambling establishments, 2 in Atlantic City, 1 in Las Vegas. But these weren't random casinos. They were owned by the Russo family, rivals, enemies. Demetrio Russo's casinos, specifically. Vittoria's jaw tightened. Demetrio was her nephew through her late sister's marriage. Family. Blood. Blood that had just betrayed blood. She picked up her phone and called Marceline directly. Hello? Marceline's voice was rough with sleep and fear. It's Vittoria. We need to talk. I woke up Wednesday morning with cramps. Not contractions, the doctor had warned me what those felt like, but stress cramps. The kind that came from crying yourself to sleep and waking up every hour in panic, your mind replaying your sister's betrayal on an endless, torturous loop. My baby was quieter than yesterday. Too quiet. Fear clawed up my throat like broken glass. I pressed both hands against my belly. Come on, sweetheart. Kick for mama. Please. Nothing. I counted to 10, 20, 30 seconds of terrifying silence. Then I felt it. A soft flutter. Then another kick. Stronger this time. Relief made me dizzy. I lay back against my pillows, tears streaming down my face, one hand still pressed protectively over my daughter. Lucenzo's name flashed on my phone screen. I answered, "How's my beautiful wife?" His voice was rough, tired. He'd been in Providence for 3 days handling a territory dispute with what remained of the Giordano family's operations. They never learned. You come at the Del Vecchios. You disappear. Luke, I need you home. Now. The warmth drained from his voice instantly, replaced by cold steel. What happened? I told him everything. The forged documents, Marceline's betrayal, the lawyer's thinly veiled threats about my delicate condition. By the time I finished, I could hear him moving on the other end, shouting orders to his men. I'm leaving in 5 minutes. Lock everything. Don't answer the door for anyone except Nana's people. You hear me, Sierra? Anyone tries to get in, you call Vincent and you hide. Protect our daughter. I will. I love you. Both of you. I'll be there in 2 hours, and when I get there, we're ending this. Anyone who threatened you, anyone who threatened our baby, they're going to learn what happens when you come at my family. His voice shook with barely controlled rage. Lucenzo was always controlled, always calculated, but when it came to me and our daughter, that control frayed at the edges, revealing something dark and dangerous underneath. I love you too, I whispered. He hung up, and I sat in our bedroom, watching the morning light creep across the hardwood floor, one hand on my belly, waiting. That's when the doorbell rang. I froze. Lucenzo said 2 hours. Vittoria hadn't called. The doorbell rang again. Longer this time. Insistent. Demanding. My heart hammered. I walked to the intercom by the front door and checked the video screen, my fingers shaking so badly I almost couldn't press the button. A delivery man stood on my doorstep holding a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Young guy, maybe 25, bored expression, uniform that looked legitimate. Delivery for Serafine Del Vecchio, he said into the camera, holding up the box. I didn't order anything. Lucenzo always handled deliveries when he was away. And after last night, after Marceline's betrayal, everything felt like a threat. Leave it on the step, I said through the intercom, my voice steadier than I felt. I need a signature, ma'am. Company policy. Leave it or take it back. I'm not opening the door. The delivery man shrugged, set the box down carefully, and walked away. I watched him get into an unmarked white van parked across the street and drive off. Something was wrong. Everything about this felt wrong. The timing, the unmarked van, the insistence on a signature. I called Vincent immediately, my grandmother's security chief. There's a package on my doorstep. I didn't order anything, and the delivery guy was pushy about getting me to open the door. Don't touch it. Don't even go near it. I'm sending a team now. 3 minutes. He hung up. I stood at my window, watching that innocent-looking brown box sitting on my doorstep like a bomb waiting to explode. My baby kicked. Hard. Like she knew. Like she could feel the danger. 10 minutes later, the longest 10 minutes of my life, 2 of Vittoria's men arrived. They examined the box with practiced efficiency, using equipment I didn't understand, treating it like it might actually be a bomb. Then they carefully opened it on my front lawn while I watched from the window, my heart in my throat. Inside was a baby toy. A small stuffed lamb with button eyes and soft white fur, the kind you'd hang over a crib, wrapped in barbed wire. The wire had been twisted around the lamb's neck like a noose, cutting into the soft fabric, and pinned to its chest was a note written in block letters. Accidents happen to pregnant women. My knees gave out. One of Vittoria's men saw me through the window and rushed inside, catching me before I hit the floor. Get her to the couch, he barked to his partner, and call Vittoria and Lucenzo. Now. They brought me inside, sat me down, brought me water I couldn't drink because my hands were shaking too badly to hold the glass. My baby kicked wildly, frantically, responding to my terror. My phone rang. Vittoria, you're safe, she said before I could speak. Lucenzo is 10 minutes away. I have 8 men surrounding your house right now. Whoever sent that package just signed their death warrant. Nonna, they threatened my baby. I know, sweetheart. And they're going to regret it. Giacomo's Ristorante on Hanover Street was the kind of place where deals were made and lives were ended, all over plates of perfectly prepared osso buco. Vittoria had been coming here for 40 years. She knew every waiter, every table, every corner where conversations disappeared into shadows and secrets died before they could breathe. She arrived at 7:30 Thursday evening. Early. Always early. Control started with preparation, and my grandmother controlled everything. The owner, Marco, greeted her at the door with a kiss on each cheek. Mrs. Caruso. Your usual table? The private room in the back, Marco. And I need complete privacy tonight. No interruptions. Not even if the building's on fire. Marco's expression shifted. He'd worked in the North End long enough to understand what privacy meant in Vittoria's world. Of course. Whatever you need. The private room was small, intimate. 1 round table, 2 chairs, walls thick enough to muffle screams if necessary. Vittoria sat facing the door. She always faced the door and waited with the patience of a predator. Marceline arrived at exactly 8 o'clock. Points for punctuality, at least. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes like bruises. Clothes wrinkled, hands shaking as she pulled out her chair. Guilt and fear wore people down faster than age ever could. Nonna, I can explain. Sit. Vittoria's voice was soft, deadly soft. The kind of quiet that preceded violence. We'll eat first. Then we'll talk. The meal arrived like clockwork. Linguine alle vongole for Marceline. Branzino for Vittoria. A bottle of Barolo that cost more than most people made in a month. Vittoria believed in savoring things. Food, wine, revenge. They ate in silence. Marceline barely touched her food, pushing pasta around her plate like a child avoiding vegetables. Vittoria savored every bite, taking her time, letting the tension build like pressure in a cracked dam ready to explode. Finally, after the plates were cleared and espresso arrived, Vittoria set down her cup and folded her hands. $4.7 million. Marceline went pale, all the blood draining from her face. How did you... The Russo family casinos, 2 in Atlantic City, 1 in Vegas. You've been gambling away your inheritance for 3 years, and when that ran out, you started borrowing from Demetrio. Our own blood. A man who would sell his mother for profit and call it business. Marceline's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time? Not the crocodile tears she'd cried at my house. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. I just needed. So you decided to steal from your pregnant sister? Vittoria leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than screaming. From my great-granddaughter's birthright? From an innocent child who hasn't even been born yet? I didn't know what else to do. They threatened to kill me. Nonna. Demetrio said if I didn't pay by Christmas, they'd dump my body in the harbor wrapped in chains. What was I supposed to do? Come to me? Vittoria's words were sharp as broken glass. You were supposed to come to family. But instead, you chose to betray family. I was ashamed. And now, Vittoria pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a bank transfer confirmation. $4.7 million, paid in full. Transaction completed 3 hours ago. Now what are you? Marceline stared at the screen like she was seeing a ghost. You paid my debts? Every single dollar. Every cent of interest. Every penalty fee. Vittoria's smile was colder than January in Boston. Which means Demetrio no longer owns you. I do. The words hung in the air like a noose. And here's what you're going to give me in exchange for your miserable life, Vittoria continued. Names. Every person who helped you forge those documents. Every person who knew about your plan to steal from Seraphine. Every person who sent those threats. I can't, they'll kill me. I'll kill you if you don't. But I'll make it slower. More painful. And I'll make sure your body is never found. So your children will spend the rest of their lives wondering if you're alive somewhere. Suffering. Marceline started crying. Desperate. Broken tears streaming down her face. I'll tell you everything. Just please, please don't hurt me. Vittoria pulled out a notepad and pen. Start talking. And Marceline, if you leave out even one name, even one detail, I'll know. I always know. By midnight, Vittoria had 3 names written in her elegant handwriting. Demetrio Caspian Russo. Uncle Salvatore Nereus De Luca. And Richard Malachite Stone, my accountant. The man who'd managed my finances for 10 years. The betrayal went deeper than anyone imagined. And the reckoning was just beginning. I spent Thursday in bed on doctor's orders. My blood pressure was dangerously high, 160/95, numbers that made my doctor's face go pale when she checked me that morning. My baby's movements were erratic, sometimes frantic, sometimes eerily still. And Lucenzo refused to let me out of his sight for even a moment. He sat in the chair beside our bed, laptop open, running his empire from our bedroom while keeping one eye constantly on me. Phone calls in Italian and English, orders given in that cold voice that meant someone somewhere was about to lose everything. Luke, I'm fine. You don't have to babysit me. Your blood pressure says otherwise. His jaw was tight, a muscle twitching near his temple that only appeared when he was barely holding it together. You're not moving until the doctor says you can move. End of discussion. I wanted to argue, but another cramp hit, sharp and sudden, stealing my breath. I gasped, my hand flying to my belly. Lucenzo was beside me in seconds, his laptop crashing to the floor, forgotten. His hand covered mine on my belly. Sarah, talk to me. Is it the baby? It's okay. Just stress cramps. She's fine. We're fine. But we weren't fine. None of this was fine. My family had betrayed me, threatened my daughter, and I was trapped in bed while my grandmother and husband went to war on my behalf. My phone buzzed. A text from Vittoria. Marceline talked. 3 names. Handling it. Rest. Protect the baby. 3 names. 3 more people I'd trusted, loved, welcomed into my life. 3 more daggers in my back. Who else? I asked Lucenzo, my voice breaking. Who else betrayed us? His expression darkened. Something murderous, flickering in his eyes. Your grandmother will tell us when she's ready. Right now you need to focus on staying calm. For our daughter. But calm was impossible. Because at 2 that afternoon, my doorbell rang again. Lucenzo's men answered it this time, 4 armed guards stationed around our house since the threat yesterday. 30 seconds later, Vincent appeared in our bedroom doorway holding another box, his face grim. Another delivery. We scanned it. No explosives. No biological threats. But you need to see this, boss. He set the box on our bed carefully, like it might shatter. Lucenzo opened it while I watched, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Inside was a baby mobile, the kind you hang over a crib. Hand-carved wooden animals dangling from delicate silk strings. Elephants, giraffes, bears, little rabbits. Beautiful, expensive. The kind of thing a loving family member might send. Except every single animal had been beheaded. Tiny wooden heads scattered in the bottom of the box like a massacre. And pinned to the box's silk interior lining was another note in those same block letters. Withdraw your claim or lose more than toys. Your baby isn't safe. Neither are you. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. My vision went dark at the edges. My baby kicked frantically, violently, responding to my absolute terror. Lucenzo grabbed the box and threw it across the room with a roar of pure rage. It hit the wall and shattered, wooden pieces scattering everywhere. Get Vittoria on the phone. Now. His voice shook with barely controlled fury. Vincent dialed. Vittoria answered on the first ring. Someone sent another threat? Lucenzo said, his voice deadly calm now. The kind of calm that preceded storms and slaughter. A baby mobile, destroyed, threatening Seraphine and our daughter directly. No more surveillance, no more watching. I want blood. There was a pause. Then Vittoria's voice came through the speaker, colder than I'd ever heard it, colder than death itself. Agreed. No more warnings, no more games. Vincent, I want Richard Stone picked up tonight, alive. I want him conscious and terrified in the warehouse by midnight. Use whatever force necessary. Consider it done. And Lucenzo? Take Seraphine to the safe house in Brookline immediately. She doesn't come back to Beacon Hill until every single person involved in this is bleeding or buried. Nana, I can't just abandon our home. I started to protest. You can and you will. Her voice softened slightly, just a fraction. Sweetheart, they're escalating. The next threat might not be a toy. It might be a bomb, a bullet, poison in your food. I won't risk you or that baby. Not for pride, not for anything. She was right. I knew she was right. But leaving felt like surrendering, like letting them win. Lucenzo was already packing, moving through our bedroom with military efficiency. Clothes, medications, everything I'd need for an extended stay. His movements were mechanical, but his hands shook. Luke? He stopped and looked at me. His eyes were wet, something I'd seen maybe twice in our entire marriage. If anything happens to you or our daughter, Sarah, I'll burn this entire city to the ground. Every person who threatened you, every person who stayed silent, every person who even thought about hurting you. I'll make them beg for death before I'm done. I'd never seen him like this. Lucenzo was always controlled, always 3 steps ahead. But right now, he looked like a man standing on the edge of something dark and irreversible. Nothing's going to happen to us, I whispered, reaching for his hand. Vittoria won't let it. Your grandmother isn't the only one who knows how to make people disappear. Richard Malachite Stone went for his morning jog every day at 6 a.m. sharp. Same route through Boston Common. Same precise pace, 8-minute miles. Same expensive Nike running shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Creatures of habit made easy prey. Vittoria had taught me that years ago. Her men watched him from 3 positions, one at the entrance to the common, one near the frog pond, one at his exit point, when Richard reached the empty section near the pond, surrounded by trees with no witnesses in sight. They moved with practiced precision. No violence, no drama, no movie theatrics. A van pulled up. 2 men in running gear stepped out like fellow joggers, and Richard was inside the van before he could process what was happening. Chloroform-soaked cloth over his mouth made sure he stayed quiet. Professional, clean, invisible. By 6:30 Thursday morning, he was unconscious in the back of an unmarked van. By midnight, he was awake, terrified, and tied to a chair in a warehouse near Logan Airport. The warehouse smelled like rust, old blood, and decades of secrets. Richard was bound to a metal chair in the center of an empty room, single bare bulb swinging overhead, casting shadows that danced like demons. Classic interrogation setup. Vittoria believed in the classics. She walked in at 12:15 a.m., flanked by Vincent and 2 other men I didn't recognize. Calm, elegant, wearing a black Armani dress and pearls like she was attending the symphony, not an interrogation that might end in bloodshed. Richard, we need to have a conversation about some financial discrepancies. Richard's eyes were wild with terror, darting around the room looking for escape routes that didn't exist. Duct tape covered his mouth, muffling his screams. Vittoria nodded to Vincent, who ripped the tape off in one savage motion. Richard gasped, sucking in air. Mrs. Caruso, I don't know what you think I did, but I swear to God, don't. Vittoria held up one elegant hand. Don't insult my intelligence by swearing to God. You forged my granddaughter's signature on inheritance documents. You manipulated trust fund accounts that you were hired to protect. And you helped send threatening packages to a pregnant woman carrying my great-grandchild. So please, Richard, don't waste my time with lies. It wasn't my idea. Marceline came to me. She said it was just temporary, that Seraphine would never even know, that we'd fix it after the baby was born. But Seraphine did know. Because you got sloppy, greedy, arrogant. Vittoria pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. This is every illegal transaction you've processed for our family over the past 15 years. Money laundering through shell corporations, tax fraud, wire transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, falsified records, enough federal evidence to put you in prison for 3 consecutive lifetimes. Richard started crying, tears streaming down his face. Please, I have a wife, 2 kids in college. I made a mistake. You made many mistakes. But threatening a pregnant woman? Threatening an unborn child? That wasn't a mistake, Richard. That was a choice. And choices have consequences. I didn't send those packages. That wasn't me, I swear. That was Demetrio. He said we needed to scare Seraphine into dropping her claim, into signing over everything quietly. Vittoria's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Demetrio Russo sent the threats directly? Yes, both of them. The baby toy with the barbed wire, the mobile with the beheaded animals, that was all him. He's the one pushing this whole thing. He wants control of the family, businesses, and Seraphine's baby is in his way. He said an infant can't run an empire. So if we eliminate the competition before she's born, eliminate. Vittoria's voice was soft as silk, deadly as poison. Interesting word choice. Were you planning to eliminate my great-granddaughter, Richard? Or just her mother? Richard's face went white. No, I just did the paperwork. I didn't know Demetrio would go that far. But you suspected. And you stayed silent. I was scared. You don't understand what Demetrio's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of. I know what everyone in my family is capable of, including myself. Vittoria turned to Vincent. Let him go. Richard's face flooded with desperate relief. Thank you, Mrs. Caruso. Thank you so much. I swear I'll... Let him go, Vittoria repeated, her voice cutting through his babbling. Lock him in his office. Surround him with printouts of every crime he's ever committed for us and against us. Make sure the doors are locked from the outside. No phone, no computer, no food, no water. Just him and his sins, and 3 days to think about his choices. Richard's relief turned to horror. You can't. I'll die. You'll survive. Humans can survive 3 days without water. You'll be uncomfortable, terrified, but alive. And when the police find you, and they will find you, Richard, I'll make sure of it, you're going to confess everything. The forgery, the threats, the conspiracy. And you're going to name every single person who helped you. Every name, every detail. Because that's the only way you survive what comes next. Demetrio will kill me. Then I suggest you cooperate with the FBI very, very quickly. Witness protection might save your life. Might. But cross me again, Richard. And I'll make sure your wife and children learn exactly what kind of man you really are before you disappear forever. Vincent and his men dragged Richard out, still screaming, still begging. Vittoria stood alone in the warehouse, phone in hand, calling me. It's confirmed, she said when I answered. Demetrio is behind the direct threats. He wants your baby eliminated before she's born so he can claim family leadership. 2 more to handle Salvatore and Demetrio together. I want them watching each other break. Then this ends. Uncle Salvatore and cousin Demetrio thought they were smart. They'd booked a private jet to the Cayman Islands under fake names, James Morrison and David Chen, scheduled to leave Logan Airport at 6 a.m. Friday morning with one-way tickets and offshore bank accounts waiting. What they didn't know was that Vittoria owned a piece of the charter company. She had pieces everywhere. Investments, favors, debts. 40 years of building an empire meant having eyes and ears in places people never imagined. At 5 a.m., their jet developed mysterious mechanical issues. Engine trouble. Nothing immediately dangerous, just enough to ground them indefinitely for mandatory safety inspections. Salvatore and Demetrio were escorted to a private hangar to wait in comfort. Leather chairs, fresh coffee, pastries from the North End, a television playing CNN with the sound low. The flight attendant was apologetic, professional, promised they'd be airborne within the hour. The hangar door locked behind her with a quiet click they barely noticed. Vittoria arrived at 5:30 with Vincent and 4 of her most trusted men. She walked into that hangar like she owned it. Because she did. She owned the building, the company, the very air they were breathing. Good morning, gentlemen. Going somewhere? Demetrio jumped to his feet. At 43, he still had his father's arrogance etched into every feature and his mother's cruelty lurking behind his eyes. Aunt Vittoria, this is just a business trip. We have investments in the Caymans that need... Sit. Down. He sat. Salvatore, at 68, had lived long enough to know better than to lie to Vittoria Caruso. He stayed in his chair, hands folded, face carefully neutral but resignation already settling into his features. He'd seen Vittoria work before. He knew how this ended. 4.7 million in gambling debts, Vittoria said, circling them slowly like a shark around bleeding prey. That's what you used to manipulate Marceline. You offered to forgive her debts if she helped you steal Seraphine's inheritance. My great-granddaughter's birthright. It's not stealing, Demetrio protested, his voice rising with indignation. That money should go to family members who've actually contributed to building this empire, not some miracle baby from a woman who's almost 50 years old. The slap came so fast, Demetrio didn't see Vittoria move. Her hand connected with his face hard enough to snap his head sideways, hard enough that the crack echoed through the hangar like a gunshot. "You will not speak about my great-granddaughter that way. Ever." Blood trickled from Demetrio's split lip. He touched his face, staring at the red on his fingers like he couldn't believe she'd actually hit him. He stayed silent this time. Vittoria turned to Salvatore, her late husband's younger brother, the man who'd sworn at Dante's funeral to protect this family with his life. "And you helped forge documents. You authorized the accountant. You knew about the threats sent to a pregnant woman carrying your own blood." Salvatore's voice was quiet, measured. "The family needs strong leadership, Vittoria. Seraphine is too soft, too trusting. That baby will make us vulnerable to rivals. An infant can't defend an empire. Seraphine is stronger than you'll ever be. She survived betrayal from everyone she loved and protected her child through it all. And that baby represents the future, the legacy your brother died building. A future you're too blind and too greedy to see." She pulled out her phone and played a video. Richard Stone in his office, surrounded by incriminating papers, confessing everything to a camera. Names, dates, crimes, bank transfers, forged signatures, conspiracy to commit fraud and harm. All of it. Every detail. Richard is cooperating with the FBI as we speak. He's naming both of you. Wire fraud, extortion, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder of an unborn child. Demetrio went pale. "Murder? We never actually planned to kill. Those threats against Seraphine? That baby toy with barbed wire around its neck? That mobile with beheaded animals and a note saying her baby isn't safe? Federal prosecutors call that conspiracy to harm, terroristic threats against a pregnant woman. And in federal court, that becomes attempted murder. Both of you are looking at 25 to life." Salvatore closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were empty, defeated. "What do you want, Vittoria? I want you both to confess. Publicly. Sign sworn statements admitting everything, every forgery, every threat, every conspiracy. Your assets will be seized and transferred to my great-granddaughter's trust fund. You'll leave Boston today. You'll never contact anyone in this family again. And you'll spend the rest of your miserable lives knowing you chose greed over blood, money over family, and lost everything because of it. And if we refuse?" Demetrio's voice shook with impotent rage and growing fear. Vittoria smiled. It was the coldest smile I'd ever seen. Colder than a Boston winter, colder than death. "Then I'll let Lucenzo have you. And my grandson-in-law doesn't have my restraint or my mercy. He'll make sure they never find enough of your bodies to fill a shoebox. Your families will spend decades wondering if you're alive somewhere, suffering, or dead and forgotten. Choose." She wasn't bluffing. They both knew it. Everyone in that hangar knew it. Salvatore signed first, his hand shaking as he wrote his name on the confession. Then Demetrio, tears of rage and humiliation streaming down his face. By noon, they were on a commercial flight to Mexico City with one-way tickets and warnings that returning to American soil meant immediate arrest. By sunset, their names were erased from every family record, every business document, every photograph in Vittoria's home. But one betrayer remained, the worst one, the one whose betrayal cut deepest. Marceline, my sister. I'd been in the Brookline safe house for 5 days when Lucenzo's phone rang at 2 a.m. Saturday morning. His head of security, voice tight with tension. "Boss, we have a security breach at the Beacon Hill residence. Someone broke in through the back entrance. It's Marceline." Lucenzo was on his feet instantly, gun already in his hand, face transformed into something cold and deadly. "Status? She's in the living room, unarmed as far as we can tell, crying, asking for Seraphine, says she needs to talk to her sister. What are your orders?" "Secure her. Don't let her leave." "We're coming now." He hung up and looked at me. "Stay here. Vincent will." "No." I was already getting out of bed, my belly heavy but my resolve heavier. "She's my sister. I'm coming. Sierra, it could be dangerous. She could be. I'm coming." I met his eyes. She betrayed me. She threatened our daughter. I deserve to face her. I need to face her. Lucenzo's jaw tightened, but he nodded. He understood. Some confrontations you couldn't avoid. Some wounds you had to see to believe they were real. 20 minutes later, we arrived at our Beacon Hill home with Vincent and 6 armed guards. Police lights painted our street in shades of blue and red. Neighbors watched from windows, curtains twitching. By morning, this would be all over the neighborhood. Inside, Marceline sat on my velvet couch, the same couch where we'd celebrated my baby's first kicks just days ago. She looked destroyed, hair matted and unwashed, clothes filthy and torn, eyes wild with desperation and something that looked like genuine grief. Lucenzo stood near the fireplace, hand near his concealed weapon, ready. Vittoria sat in the armchair across from Marceline, perfectly composed in a black suit, watching her granddaughter like a scientist observing a failed experiment. When I walked in, Marceline jumped to her feet. "Sarah, thank God. Please, you have to listen to me." "Sit down, Marceline," Vittoria commanded, her voice leaving no room for argument. Marceline sat like a puppet with cut strings. I lowered myself carefully onto the opposite couch, my belly prominent between us. My baby kicked, hard, strong, like she was trying to protect me from the inside, remind me what mattered most. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "I came to apologize, to explain, to make you understand that I never wanted to hurt you, Sarah. You're my sister, my blood. I love you. You have a strange way of showing love, forging my signature, trying to steal my baby's inheritance, standing by while Demetrio sent me threats. I was drowning in debt," Demetrio said. "If I didn't help him, he'd kill me. He showed me photos of what he did to the last person who owed him money." Her voice broke. I was terrified. I didn't know what else to do. "You could have come to me, to Nana, to family." I was ashamed. I'd gambled away everything Mama left us, everything Daddy worked for. I couldn't face you. I couldn't admit that I'd failed that badly. So you chose to destroy me instead of asking for help. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking with emotion I could barely contain. "You forged my signature. You tried to steal from my unborn child. You let Demetrio send me a baby toy wrapped in barbed wire, Mare. A baby toy. Do you understand what that did to me? To my baby?" Tears streamed down Marceline's face. I told him to stop. I begged him not to go that far. But you didn't stop him. You knew what he was planning, and you stayed silent. You chose your debt over my daughter's life. Marceline reached into her jacket. Lucenzo's gun was out instantly, aimed at her head. "Don't move. It's not a weapon," Marceline sobbed, pulling out an envelope slowly, hands raised. "It's documents. I'm giving everything back. The inheritance, the money, every penny. I signed it all over to your baby. Legal documents, notarized. It's all here. Please, Sarah. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm still your sister. I still love you. That has to mean something." I looked at that envelope, at my sister's tear-stained, desperate face, at the woman who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd held me when our mother died, who'd promised to always protect me. I thought about forgiveness, about mercy, about blood being thicker than water and all the platitudes people said about family. Then I felt my baby kick again, stronger this time, a reminder of what truly mattered, a reminder that some betrayals were unforgivable. "Get out. Sarah, please, just listen. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. I don't ever want to see you again." Marceline looked at Vittoria, desperate for intervention. At Lucenzo, seeking mercy. No one moved to help her. No one spoke in her defense. She stood on shaking legs and walked to the door like a woman heading to her own execution. At the threshold, she turned back one final time. "I'm sorry. For everything. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope someday you'll let me meet my niece. Maybe someday," I said quietly, my voice breaking despite my resolve. "But not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe never. Now leave before I change my mind and let my husband do what he's been dying to do since the moment you betrayed us." Marceline left. The door closed behind her with a finality that felt like a coffin lid slamming shut, and I stood there, one hand on my belly, and finally let myself cry. Not for the sister I'd lost. For the sister I'd thought I had but never really existed. 6 months later, on a perfect April morning in Boston, with cherry blossoms blooming in the public garden, I gave birth to my daughter. The labor was long, painful, terrifying, but when they finally placed her on my chest, 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect human being, everything else disappeared. Every betrayal, every threat, every moment of fear. She had dark hair like Lucenzo, my eyes, and lungs that could wake the dead. She came into this world screaming her fury at the indignity of birth, fierce and alive and absolutely perfect. Lucenzo cut the umbilical cord with tears streaming down his face, his hands shaking so badly the doctor had to guide him. "She's beautiful, Sarah. She's perfect. She's ours." The nurse placed our daughter on my chest, and she stopped crying immediately. She looked up at me with brand new eyes that couldn't quite focus yet, and I felt something fundamental shift inside me, a transformation I didn't know was possible, an understanding of what it meant to love something more than your own life. This was what Vittoria had been protecting. This was what Marceline had threatened. This tiny, perfect human who trusted me completely to keep her safe. "What's her name?" the nurse asked gently. I looked at Lucenzo through my tears. We'd discussed names for months, debating options, trying different combinations. But in this moment, holding my daughter against my heart, there was only one name that felt right. One name that honored the woman who'd saved us both. Vittoria. Vittoria Serafine Del Vecchio. My grandmother, sitting in the corner of the delivery room still dressed in her designer suit, went perfectly still. Then her mask cracked. Just for a moment, I saw the woman beneath the legend. Vulnerable, moved, human. "You honor me, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know." 2 weeks later, we gathered in Vittoria's study in the North End compound. Lawyers, witnesses, family members who'd proven their loyalty. We signed new inheritance documents, not just trust funds and business holdings. Complete, ironclad documents giving baby Vittoria full control of the family empire at age 25, with provisions for education, protection, guidance until then. And grandmother Vittoria named as primary guardian and trustee, with Lucenzo and me as co-executors. Every protection, every safeguard, every legal shield money and power could buy. Marceline's name was erased. Demetrio's, Salvatore's, Richard's. They existed in exile somewhere, Mexico, Central America, places where American law couldn't easily reach them. I didn't know where exactly. I didn't want to know. Richard had cooperated with the FBI, his testimony bringing down 3 rival families in a massive RICO case. He'd spend the rest of his life in witness protection, looking over his shoulder, wondering when someone would find him. My family was smaller now. Lucenzo, Vittoria, Vincent and his team, a handful of cousins who'd proven themselves through the crisis. But we were stronger, cleaner, built on loyalty and love instead of obligation and blood alone. On a sunny afternoon in May, I sat in Vittoria's garden behind the North End compound, baby Vittoria asleep in my arms. Wrapped in a blanket, my grandmother had knitted herself a skill I didn't even know she possessed. Vittoria watched us from her chair, a glass of wine in her hand, contentment softening her usually sharp features. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Cutting them all out? Marceline was your sister for 48 years. I thought about that question for a long time. About family, about blood, about the difference between people who shared your DNA and people who actually deserved your love and trust. No, I said finally, surprising myself with how certain I sounded. I regret trusting them when I shouldn't have. I regret giving them chances to hurt me, but I don't regret protecting my daughter. I'd do it again. I'd do worse if I had to." Vittoria raised her glass in a silent toast. "Then you've learned the most important lesson. Love without boundaries is weakness. Love with boundaries is power. Your daughter will grow up knowing the difference." A letter arrived that afternoon. International postage from somewhere in South America. Marceline's handwriting on the envelope. My name written in the careful script she'd used since we were children. I held it over the fireplace in Vittoria's study and watched it burn without opening it. My grandmother nodded approval. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed forever. I looked down at my sleeping daughter, at her tiny perfect face, her miniature hands curled into fists like she was ready to fight the world already. "You'll grow up knowing exactly who loves you," I whispered to her. "And who deserves your love back. No one will ever make you choose between loyalty and survival. Not while I'm breathing, not while your Nana and your father are here to protect you. You'll be safe. Always." Baby Vittoria yawned, a sound so small and perfect it broke my heart, and grabbed my finger with her impossibly tiny hand. Outside, Boston moved and breathed and lived, full of threats and beauty and endless possibility. But in this moment, in this garden, holding my daughter with my grandmother watching over us both like a guardian angel carved from steel and fury, I finally understood what Vittoria had been trying to teach me all along. Love and ruthlessness weren't opposites. They were 2 sides of the same coin. They were protection, power, survival. And survival was everything. Because I would burn the world down before I let anyone threaten my daughter again. That was what family meant. Not blood. Protection. If this story resonated with you, then hit that subscribe button right now. And do me a favor. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. Because tomorrow I'm bringing you another story that's just as wild, just as unbelievable as this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.